So welcome everyone. My name is Dan Sullivan. I'm the head of partnerships here at Cuseum. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for being here today. Hopefully you find yourselves safe and healthy. To those who are new to Alumni Hour, I'll be your host with Cuseum today. We work with cultural organizations in the higher education space, colleges and universities, to help them increase engagement with their members and alumni using tools like digital membership cards, digital alumni cards, and member portals. So I'm super excited to welcome you all to another Alumni Hour. Quick housekeeping while you're here, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. There's a lot of great conversation that can happen. As I ask questions to our panelists, feel free to chime in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And then secondly, if you have a question, you can use that Q&A functionality down at the bottom of your screen. You see a question that you like, give it a little thumbs up. It'll drive it up to the top, which will allow us to prioritize the more important questions. Now, onto the webinar. So in recent years, and particularly in this era of COVID-19, colleges, universities, and alumni associations have really ramped up their digital strategy in order to keep alumni engaged. And as institutions are striving to develop more engaging virtual content and events, many have really started to initiate more novel partnerships that have allowed them to offer their graduates fresh value and kind of dynamic opportunities to keep connected with the institution. So for example, many alumni professionals have spearheaded partnerships with museums, cultural attractions, sports leagues, and more. And we're going to get into all of that today. So listen, we've got a great panelist lineup. We've got Susan Evans, the Senior Director of External Relations and Special Events at University of San Francisco. We have Matt Lucerto, the Director of Affinity and Domestic Engagement at Northeastern University. Azela Santana, the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at UCF College of Arts and Humanities. Ellen Trappey, Senior Director of Alumni Relations at Thomas Jefferson University. And Patricia Perazzini, the Director of Alumni Engagement, Regional Chapter Development at Fairfield University. So to our panelists, thank you for being here. Really excited to have you. And let's go around the room with some quick introductions. Give us a quick overview of your role, your team, how it's structured in your organization. And I'm going to hand the mic over to Susan for you to kick us off.
Hey, thank you for the warm introduction, Dan. As Dan just said, I am the Senior Director of External Relations and Special Events at University of San Francisco. My role is overseeing all of the special events at University of San Francisco. So that's presidential events. We have a Silk Speaker Series, which is a wonderful donor, one of our alums, who's donated towards getting some of the higher level speakers, such as Serena Williams, for example, we just had. And then we also do sort of the executive events as well, like the Chase Center and the high-end alumni events, and then larger scale. And my team consists of 2 people under me, my AVP, and then we have a couple of student assistants. So we are a lean, mean team these days.
Awesome. And how big is your alumni base?
About 80,000.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Ellen, you're next.
Hey everybody, I'm so happy to be here today. As Dan mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of Alumni Relations at Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia, but I am very, very new to alumni relations. I sort of want to say that right out. In my previous role, I was in charge of public events and partnerships for the Franklin Institute, which is a science museum here in Philadelphia. And then also during the pandemic, I helped to co-found an organization called museumexpert.org, which seeks to serve as a platform to connect out-of-work museum professionals who are out of work as a result of the pandemic with job searching resources and with employment opportunities. But because that work, it revolves around event planning and developing relationships, alumni relations, I think, is a perfect next step for me. And our alumni relations space at the Franklin Institute, we have a team of 7 alumni relations professionals, and our alumni base is about 68,000 alumni across the country, well, the world, actually.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Azela, you're up next.
Hi, thank you for the introduction, Dan. My name is Azela, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement, specifically for the College of Arts and Humanities at the University of Central Florida. In my role, I oversee 2 alumni boards, including a board for the college, as well as our UCF Marching Knights, which is the marching band for the university. And I really focus on developing, planning, implementing various events in the college, specifically on alumni communications, alumni and donor related events. And I work very closely with our development officer regarding donor stewardship, fundraising campaigns, and sort of other initiatives across the college. Just to kind of give you an idea of the scope of our alumni base, we have over 327,000 alumni at UCF, and I oversee about 20,000 alumni specifically in the College of Arts and Humanities. And some of those programs include our theater, our visual arts programming, a lot of our humanities areas like history and philosophy. So we essentially have a team of 2 people, a development officer, and of course my role in terms of alumni engagement.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. And Matt.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Lucerto. I'm the Director of Affinity and Domestic Programming here at Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. We have just over 275,000 alumni through all our different schools. Our main campus is in Boston, but we also have campuses in Charlotte, Seattle, Silicon Valley, Toronto, San Francisco, Vancouver, and our newest one that just opened up in Portland, Maine, the Rue Institute. I also like to add in, we also have Boston and Nahant in Massachusetts. If you're from the New England area, they also are doing great programming there. The team that I work with, we basically, as I like to say, is our group, if the event happens off campus, it's usually our team that's kind of working with it. So we work with all our regional programming and things like that domestically, and we really kind of do different things like that, building up the community in that area to make sure the programming is going. And then also with our affinity programming, that can go everything from our more seasoned alums, which we have as our Golden Graduates, it's our 50th reunion, our NU at Noon, which is another program for our more, as we like to call, seasoned alumni, but right on through all our affinity programs. So our Black alumni, our LGBT alumni, our Asian American alumni, and different programs like that. We also love to partner with our different schools to help them host different programming, which we've been able to kind of do even more so in the wonderful world of virtual that we've been in right now, just because of the fact that we don't have to pay for them to get on a plane. We can just have to get them in front of a Zoom camera. So that's been really great. But looking forward to talking to everyone today. So that's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, Pat.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. So I am Director of Alumni Engagement, Regional Chapter Development for Fairfield University. I did want to talk a little bit about Fairfield U to let you know about it. We were founded in 1942, and we are one of the 28, the grade 28 of Jesuit colleges and universities. We're in Fairfield, Connecticut, which is about an 1.5 hour train ride from New York City and about 2.5 hours from Boston, which I said to Dan before, I make that trip very, very often. We have approximately 4,300 undergraduate students, 1,200 graduate, most of them from the core 4 states of New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Massachusetts. So consequently, most of my alumni are in that area as well. We do have 9 regional chapters that I manage, about 60 volunteers in those regional chapters. And my tagline is, they're from Boston to Washington, DC alphabetically, and Boston to San Francisco geographically. I also occasionally work with volunteers, say in Cleveland or Denver, who want to just get Fairfield Stags together, which I love. So my team is Alumni Relations. There are 6 of us on that team. We are in under the advancement umbrella. So I have colleagues in development as well. So we are 2 sides of the house under one roof. So that's us.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Pat, I want to stay with you. I've got a question, but real quick, to the folks that are participating in the chat, make sure that little blue drop down says panelists and attendees or everyone. So if it says just panelists, your messages will only go to us. So just a little quick tip there. Pat, can you talk a little bit about your partnership strategy? What does that look like? What types of institutions are you partnering with? And what have you accomplished through those partnerships?
Sure. So, when we started this whole quarantine, I wanted to bring to my constituents, and my constituents are not only alumni, but parents. I wanted to give them bring them something uniquely Fairfield. So, and also topics that were relevant at the time. So I partnered with some beloved professors who have a following, or I did mindfulness or nutrition and exercise during the pandemic. However, as we got longer into this, I thought to myself, how can I highlight my different chapters and what is going on in the chapter regions? So I thought about what's unique about Philadelphia or Hartford or the New England areas. So I partnered with museums, the Museum of the American Revolution in Philadelphia. 2 weeks ago, we just did a museum tour of the Wadsworth Atheneum Museum of Art in Hartford. We did a partnership with New England, Historic New England. They have 27 landmark properties in their portfolio. So we toured about 6 of those. So I thought, why can't I bring something that highlights my chapters? It helps those museums and institutions. It piques people's curiosity. So maybe if they're in Gloucester, if they're in Philadelphia, I'll go take a trip to the Museum of the American Revolution or the Wadsworth in Hartford. And it also, I was able to, as we've said over and over again, I was able to engage and connect alumni who would never go to an alumni event because they're not in Philadelphia or Hartford or Boston. They're in Hawaii or Arkansas and South Carolina. So that has been great.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. Matt, how about for you? Can you talk a little bit about your partnership strategy? What's that looked like? And then, what kind of institutions are you partnered with and what kind of results are you seeing?
Yeah, no, I think kind of one of the things, as Patricia was kind of saying, when we first kind of got into this, we really were trying to figure out where we should be kind of looking at and what we can be kind of be doing. I think being able to kind of get faculty that we wouldn't be able to get before was something that's really great. And being able to kind of put those programs in online things. I think one of the other things that we've learned kind of throughout the time too is the timing of those events. I think at the beginning, we were still in that traditional after work, people want to hop on a computer, but by even closer to the summertime and the fall, we were realizing if you're on the computer all day long, you really don't want to be on the computer anymore. So doing events either in the morning between like 8 and 8:45 and then from noon to 1 has been really successful. But I think what we were able to do then is look to kind of, again, what is unique in the different areas that we have. So we had an alum who actually is the director of development at the Children's Museum here in Boston. And he kind of came to us and said, hey, we have, a lot of virtual different programming. We'd love to be able to partner with you, as an alum, what we can do. So what we were able to do is kind of put together a family-friendly event. And we were kind of trying to venture into that kind of, field anyway, because when you have our normal alumni events, you're not having to worry about getting a babysitter, finding parking, getting into the city and all those things, but being able to do something to entertain your children during this pandemic and during the craziness, we were able to kind of do something there. So they had a really great, staff and people like that, and they helped us with a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and getting things together. But then we were able to kind of put together what is our program that we've now rolled into a lot of other things called Creature Feature, which is basically partnering in different places where they have fun animals, and you get to put that in front of different people. And the great thing about that is we're able to record those programming too. And then what we're going to do over the summertime is basically repackage them and send them out to our alumni during the summertime if they miss them on the first time, because it's a rainy day and you don't have anything to entertain your children. Here's a great way as an alumni institution that we can kind of show you that you can have an hour to kind of revisit those things and bringing people back in that just normally we would lose during that time. So that's kind of one of the main ways that we've been able to kind of partner with different people.
That's amazing. And I love that outside the box thinking of, well, what do our alumni have any interest in the Children's Museum about? But I think that's obviously, resonating pretty strongly. Ellen, how about for you? How are you approaching partnerships? What's that strategy look like? What kind of results are you seeing?
Sure. Well, I have been in starting this role, I have really been leaning on my museum chops and my museum skills. And so I've actually been sort of recycling a lot of programs that we did variations of at the museum or through the Philadelphia Science Festival. And so I've been able to sort of leverage some of what were partnerships for the museum at Jefferson to do some of those programs. So, one of our most popular programs that we've done so far is we did a Science of Coffee event with a professor that I had worked with at the museum to do a Science of Coffee event for the Franklin. And so was able to get her to recycle almost, do a little bit more in depth than what she did for a free flowing event at a museum. We sent out coffee samples to everyone who signed up, and then she was able to talk about, so there was a hands-on component as well. So really just, using what makes museum events engaging to make them engaging for our alumni as well. And it's been very well received.
That's great. Yeah, I think that, different perspective, really can go a long way. There's a lot of, other applications for that skill set. Azela, how about for you? What's your partnership strategy look like? And, what types of organizations you partnered with and what results are you seeing?
So one thing I can say about UCF, it's sort of known as the partnership university. So our partnerships vary in different degrees and levels. We have a lot of longstanding partnerships with organizations that focus on the theater and the arts, and some of them include, the Orlando Philharmonic Orchestra. We have the Orlando Shakespeare Theater, and even the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts. But these partnerships have allowed us to not only really expand our audience and relevancy within Central Florida, but also allows us to essentially create and expand our students' experiences and helping them prepare for careers within the arts and also in the humanities. We also have really great partnerships just in terms of event programming and initiatives across Central Florida. So one great partnership that I do annually within the School of Visual Arts and Design and the college is that we partner with the Orlando Museum of Art on an annual event that happens in one evening. We see over 500 to 600 people in that one night in a non-COVID year that's sort of pre-COVID, but it allows us to really highlight some of the initiatives within the College of Arts and Humanities, but also highlight the talents and this of the faculty and the students and other programming within the college and kind of bring more community awareness about what our college does. But it's just a really great way for us to expand our audience, engage with donors and alumni across Orlando, and really refocus on how we connect with our community.
Amazing. Awesome. And Susan, last but not least, can you talk a little bit about your partnership strategy and what types of institutions you partnered up with and what you're seeing for results?
Absolutely. So through our event programming, I mean, we've gone with everyone else 100% virtual. We've continued the conversations and events we've been doing, and we always have featured speakers at our in-person events. So we just flipped the switch and went virtual, and have really been able to co-brand through streaming over social media with, partnerships with the Federal Reserve. So we had the president of San Francisco Federal Reserve speaking, and they streamed the conversation, and we co-streamed it. So it brought to light the University of San Francisco, also a Jesuit institution, and our strategy and morals and advice for our students, and it went really national. Along the same lines, we've also partnered with Major League Baseball, the Yankees, the Giants, the Golden State Warriors, Michael Franti, who's a singer, Steph Curry. So really every big speaker we offer co-branding, and 90% of the time they say yes. So our exposure and the numbers that we're seeing watching our conversations have increased tenfold.
Wow, that's pretty wild. And I'll be interested to hear a little bit later on about how you plan to keep that going as we transition back into in person. So I think my next question, Susan, staying with you, what has been your most successful event, content, or outcome that you've achieved through a partnership? And before you answer that, audience members, I'd love to hear from you as well in the chat. Like, what really hit it out of the park? What was a huge hit, or maybe the other way, what was not received as well as you were planning? So let's learn from our wins and our losses here. But Susan, you want to take that? Talk a little bit about your most successful event.
Absolutely. Our most successful event was sort of a perfect storm. We got Steph Curry, basketball player, MVP, and he agreed to speak. It was Juneteenth last year. And we partnered with our USF's Institute of Nonviolence in conversation with Dr. Clarence Jones, who's one of our faculty, and he wrote the draft of the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech. So it was a talk on Black Lives Matter when that was really at the height on Juneteenth, and Steph Curry also streamed the talk to his 12 million followers. So it was also at a time where there was no sports anywhere happening. So it really went viral. We had over 200,000 people viewing the talk. I've seen some people in the chat, even my family from the great state of Wisconsin, were texting me like, oh my God, I just saw USF on ESPN and Sports Center. So the talk went wild. We were able to get donations for our Institute of Nonviolence, which was really impactful, and showcased University of San Francisco on a whole nother scale to a group of people who probably never had heard of us before. So it was a great turnkey event that I'd love to try and recreate as many times as possible.
So everyone needs to find someone with 12 million followers, befriend them, and get them to stream your events. It's just as easy as that. Azela, how about for you? By the way, that's incredible. Azela, on your side, what has been the most successful event, partnership, outcome, that you've seen, through some of your relationship?
Yeah, so one of the things that our college does is we have a really wonderful partnership with the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts. And every year in spring, we actually do a multi-day festival showcase, which essentially includes a lot of our students' focus of like performances, music performances, theater, dance, and a lot of our humanities programs that are featured in that. And it really has allowed us to expand, again, our audience. And, sometimes working at a university, it may be harder to get our alumni or donors back on campus. And so having a space where it's more centrally located and working with an audience that's already built in with a partner organization has really allowed us to be able to expand that audience, but also bring and introduce more people and new community members to see some of the events that are hosted with this multi-day festival. And it's drawn thousands in that week and a half time span, and it has really allowed us to really think about like how our partnerships are. We partner with Orlando Ballet as part of the festival and other organizations that have been featured within the festival. And it's just a really great way for us to really essentially expand who is going to these events and engage our donors and alumni.
Fantastic. Ellen, how about for you? What's been the most successful partnership or outcome, from those partnerships?
Well, I mentioned the coffee program that we did in coordination with one of our professors and a local coffee roaster. We had a very successful program for women in finance with the financial advisory group. That was great. But I thought maybe, Dan, I would talk about a challenge that I had with a partnership, perhaps, because I think, that's different. So I worked with the Mutter Museum, which is sort of a medical oddity museum here in Philadelphia. And I worked with a museum educator there to sort of do a behind the scenes program for our alumni. And we do like all of our programs to have a very Jefferson sort of feel to them. And so the idea was they would pick something that they would show from their collection. And then I would find a speaker that would sort of give a talk related to medicine or something related to that artifact. And so the museum educator and I came up with this great thing that we were going to show. It was going to be sort of a mystery at the Mutter presentation. And we had a really cool article from the collection, the corset skeleton, that Dr. Mutter probably fibbed about when he gave to the collection about why the woman was shaped the way she was. He said it was corsets. It wasn't probably corsets. And so we're so excited. We're going to do this great program. And then I came back to campus to find someone to help me speak. And it was just such a niche artifact that I could not find anyone on campus to talk to that. And no one's doing research on corsetry. No one's doing, so it was just, the idea was there. It was great. I had the partners lined up. But at the end of the day, it just sort of couldn't come to fruition because it was just too. So next time, what I learned from that is I will probably pick a couple people that I'd like to feature as speakers and then maybe find the museum to go with that next time.
It's so interesting too, because, it seems to be very hit or miss with those, really granular events. Sometimes they explode and other times, they're completely missed. Even someone in the chat mentioned, they were doing a Money Matters session with a credit union. They said it went really well. But then on the other hand, you've got like this speaker series with former athletes and, harder to get registration. So yeah, it's always kind of a mystery how people will respond, no pun intended. Matt, how about for you? What's been the most successful partnership that you guys have, pursued or successful event or outcome?
Yeah, I think one of the partnerships that we were able to actually kind of really pursue that we're kind of in the middle part of the partnership is actually, because it is a university, we have so many different schools within it. And what we wanted to really do is highlight each of the different schools in a good way to basically say, what does your school look like post-COVID? And what does it look like for your professionals that look once you graduate? So we started off with our humanities school, and we were able to kind of, get the dean in and have different people in. We've also now done things with the School of Science and also our School of Design as well. So each of these schools so far have already kind of been really well. And I always like to say too, it's a really great thing to kind of get the wins that you need to get in, to get the deans that will sign on first, So when you go to the deans that are a little bit more hesitant to sign on, you'd be like, here's a really great program that we've did, and we got 150 people at each of these programs so far, and they're like, oh yeah, I should do that. So I think one of the things that we were able to kind of do and kind of show the partnership is been going really good. So we now already have one set up for the summertime, and the rest of the schools, we're basically just kind of trying to figure out where we're going to slot them in for the fall to kind of finish off the programming with each of our different schools. And it's been a really great way to kind of bring people back. You know, I think it's a combination of people are interested on where is, you know, this field going. So you have people outside of the schools that are actually interested in it. So even though I may not have graduated with an architectural degree, I'm interested to see what design is. So we're getting new people in that way. But it's also a way to reconnect people that just were, you know, have lost touch with Northeastern. So we're seeing a lot of different people that are new kind of coming back because of the virtual space and having that partnership. And it's basically a good way to give a state of the state with each of the different schools. So the dean's able to kind of say, this is what's going on, here's our great faculty, and they like to be able to kind of get in front of that large audience that they can't normally, you know, we don't normally do in the virtual space. But now having this virtual space, we're getting those people, you know, out in the road. So, you know, you have that person from Iowa and you have that person from New York City that are able to join in and be in those different events. And again, I go back to the timing of those events. You know, one of the things that we've been able to kind of do is, you know, for our design event, we looked at the data and kind of say, hey, actually a lot of our alumni are on the West Coast for this. So we actually did it for a 3 to 4 East Coast time. So it was a 12 to 1 slot for them. And we had good representation on both coasts for that. Our East Coast friends actually told us they enjoyed it because they kind of called it their last meeting of the day and then ended the workday a little early at the end of it. So it was something great there. But we were able to still get 125 to 150 for each of those events, which is pretty successful for our programming. Outside of that, you know, just kind of programming with different people and different museums has been really successful for us as well. But I think I can touch upon that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I want to jump to Pat, and I'm going to get over to you in 1 second, but I want to answer this question real quick in the chat. Can you talk quickly about how you don't compete with the different colleges doing their own events as opposed to the alumni engagement team doing a set of events of theirs? How are you not competing with each other, Matt?
Part of it is we actually built the partnership with them. So they're putting on their own programming, but we're meeting with them on a monthly basis to kind of say, what programming are you doing? And some of the programming they actually hand off to us because our schools are really great at doing the fundraising and that stuff. But the event organization things, sometimes they're like, you're better at it. Can you help us kind of come up with some different ideas? So we do a lot of brainstorming and things like that to figure out what is the best way to kind of do different programming. So sometimes it is the school saying, hey, no, we got this down pat, we're going to take forward with it. Otherwise, they're like, hey, we have this nebulous of an idea. Can you make this into something real? And then that's what our team does. And the other great thing about it is, in working with the different schools for our regional programming, what we've been able to kind of do is partner them with the different regional program. So if it's something around law and policy, the DC community is going to partner with them and help host it, even though it's open to virtually everyone. We had one around finance that we partnered with the New York community, even though, you know, it's not in New York, it's still based in Boston, but it gives the volunteers that we're working with some cachet that they're actually doing different programming, which is really great. So we're offering basically our true volunteers in that area the ability to introduce the dean or introduce the speaker. So they're still having a role in keeping them engaged and being a volunteer moving forward.
Awesome. Anybody else want to throw anything else in there? Any other thoughts?
I do, because I love that. And I just actually last week partnered with our Dolan School of Business on a real estate panel. So I brought in my colleague who works in development. We had 4 panelists, 2 from the West Coast, 1 from DC, 1 from the East Coast. And we talked about the effect of the pandemic on real estate. And our dean introduced us. But Matt, to your point, I have been having my chapter leaders introduce people as well, because it does keep them engaged. And if, you know, they're giving me ideas of what things to do. So I think that's great.
Awesome. Let's Pat, let's stay with you. You want to give us kind of a high level on, your most successful partnership or the most successful outcomes or content you've seen?
Absolutely, and it's mostly those tours. We have just in our chapter structure, we have 4 pillars that we try to have events in each of these 4 pillars. So it's business development, lifelong learning, service and spirituality, and social and family. I think the lifelong learning pillar really works with this platform. So we have gotten a lot of traction on those tours, but my very most successful tour, and we had to do it twice, was my tour of Yankee Stadium. So yes, it is a tradition at Fairfield U. They started going to Citi Field a couple of years ago, but they've been going to, and it's open to everybody. So about 1,000 people go down to Yankee Stadium every September, and we missed that, unfortunately, last year. So in November, we did 2 tours of Yankee Stadium, which were outstanding.
That's great. And real quick, before I get to this next question, someone asked in the Q&A, is anyone charging for virtual events? So panelists, I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but is anybody charging for virtual events? A lot of head shaking. Matt, you are? Okay.
Yep. So we're doing mostly free events. So if it's just human capital that we're doing, we're keeping those free, but events when we've partnered with other institutions where we're paying them to kind of help run the program, we are starting to add a little bit of a nominal fee to kind of get people in the game, especially if we have a limited capacity of people that are going to be able to come to the event.
Awesome.
And
Susan.
yeah, we're not charging, but we've hooked we use Cvent into Salesforce, but we've hooked that in and are asking for optional donations when people sign up. And we've had really great traction with people donating in lieu of the ticket cost. And we also have tested text to give, which has also been pretty successful as well. So we are gaining some donations there instead.
That's great. Awesome. So Pat, going back to you, can we talk for a second a little bit about the how of partnerships?
Sure.
How do you initiate a new partnership? Who do you contact? What does that look like?
The first thing I do is ask my chapter leaders if they have connections. So, and to Matt's point, it gives them a little skin in the game too, and it gives them a feeling of ownership. So with New England, historic New England, one of my chapter leaders, his father-in-law was very involved with that organization. So he brokered an introduction to me. The Museum of the American Revolution, I've been there. So, I just reached out to them. The Wadsworth, we had planned a March 2020 in-person event there, and obviously that was canceled. So I'd already had a relationship with them. We are planning a spring of 2022. But one of my chapter leaders says, well, why don't we call them and see if they'll do something virtually for us. The Yankee Stadium one just came from my love of baseball and doing a little cold calling. So
awesome. Matt, how about for you? What is it? How does your how do you strike up a partnership? How do you approach that? What's that look like?
I think for us, it's kind of a different faceted way. I think for us, first, we kind of been just scouring our Salesforce and seeing what alums are out there and being able to kind of reach out to them, using the partnership of our advancement colleagues and our development officers of who do you have that's interesting that might be able to be an inroad is always a great thing. But then the other thing is just kind of doing a scouring of the internet. The wonderful world of Google Alerts and putting Northeastern and something. And every so often I'll get a lead from them that we don't even know what this person is. And they'd be like, oh, that's a really great person that we should reach out to. And, that's kind of how we've been able to kind of get some different things, outside the university together. Just looking to kind of see what things are interesting and different things like that. But also then using the network that we have. I think Patricia kind of said it well. When you have volunteers out there, basically tell them what can you give us and who can we talk to? And they'll say, oh, here's my friend, they're doing really well, you should talk to them. And it might not be that person, but it's 3 people down the road from that person that's like, oh yeah, I actually can give you this, get you access to this event. And I think it'd be really great to kind of do. And it's a new connection that we're able to bring back to the university. With so many different alumni, and only so little staff, we can't talk to everyone, but getting those connections from our alumni really helps us kind of move down the line.
For sure. And I think just to one of my experiences, I was involved with my alma mater and still am, And one of the things that seems very simple was they'd have a list of people that they were trying to get in touch with, whether they're high-level donors or people in the community, and they'd circulate that list with like the people who are in the alumni council and whatnot, and say, does anybody know anybody on this list? And they'd just go through it, and maybe there'd be 25 or 50 people on it, and you say, oh yeah, I know this guy, he's friends with my dad, or whatever. And that's how some of those biggest relationships that they were able to strike up came about. So I just thought that was really interesting. Ellen, how about for you? How do you approach partnerships? It sounds like leaning on some of that museum experience has come in handy.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say LinkedIn is an amazing resource to see who I know, who knows someone, or what our alumni are doing. The other thing I would just say, practically, if you are looking to partner with a museum, look for people in programs, director of programs, director of engagement, director of strategic partnerships. Those are some folks that you would want to try to reach out to. And then the other thing, I know some of you might not have museums in your city, some more rural institutions. And so I would say the Science Festival Alliance could be an amazing resource for you. It's a consortium of science festivals around the country and the world, but there are over 70 festivals in the United States. And so those are people who know how to do engagement, who know how to get scientists to be better communicators. And so use that as a resource to see who is in your area. You might not even know who's around you.
That's super interesting. Azela, how do you approach partnerships? How's that work for you?
Yeah, of course. So we, at the college, we have a lot of direct partners, and they're more in the more official capacity. And so a lot of our network, we have individuals that are friends or donors of the university that serve on boards, or they serve as on committees within these organizations across Orlando. But one of my main successes is, in developing a new partner with a nonprofit organization, for example, in the arts, is that we have so many alumni in Central Florida. So like over 160,000 of our alumni live in Orlando. And so it's allowed us to really make a lot of those direct connections and in reaching out to the organizations. And more than likely, we will find an alum who actually has a connection with those organizations. And it's been really great because, with those direct connections, we've been able to, create special events, whether they're small private donor events or if they're larger alumni-based events, to be able to connect more so with our audience and really develop a relationship with those partner organizations as well. And so, depending on the scope, a lot of our organizations that we work with, it varies in terms of the type of programming. And, it could be more working with them as an internship for a student, or, whether it's working as a specific event or program.
Great. And Susan, last but not least, can you talk a little bit about how you initiate your partnerships?
Absolutely. And a lot of it, following on Ellen, is LinkedIn is huge for me as well. One thing that hasn't been said by the panelists yet is I do Google alerts for my university. So I see any alum that's in the news, I get an email every day. So that helps being sort of, up to the date, split second. One event we recently did, Alyssa Nakin, who is this Giants first coach for MLB, was in the news. And I was like, oh my God, let's get her as a speaker. But Google Alerts has been really helpful. And then through that, it's like, who's going to make the most impact asking? Like, nobody's really heard of me, but my president is very involved. So, he'll sometimes ask people to speak, and he'll do introductions and conclusions for our talks. So we make our events presidential, and usually when it comes from him, people respond a little bit more than from me. So it's partnering, with the right person to ask those high-level speakers as well. That's part of the game.
Definitely. A lot of the partnerships that we've been hearing here today are revolving around museums and cultural institutions. And what is it that makes those partnerships beneficial, and how you initiate them? And I'm going to, target this to Ellen and Azela. You both have experience working in museums, so I imagine you've got kind of a unique perspective on this. Do you have some insider, perspective about how those partnerships operate? Ellen, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Well, the thing that I've been thinking about as we've been talking today is museums need universities as much as universities can use museums in this instance. And there's a lot that we can do for each other. Museums are trying to do engaging programs too. And so think about if they help us in alumni relations to do an engaging program, maybe they need a connection to a scientist at our university or a professor at our university, or even first-year students to come do service learning, hands-on activities at a family day once we can go back to doing those sorts of things. So really looking at how we can help each other and how it actually can be a partnership and not just a one-sided transaction, I think is really important in all of this.
A mutually beneficial aspect is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Azela, how about for you? Obviously, you've got a museum experience too, so interested to hear your perspective too.
Yeah, of course. So I worked at a museum for over 10 years. And one of the things that I know, I'm sure Ellen can also attest to, is that museums are always understaffed and under-resourced. And I think the benefit of being able to work with a university that allows them to be able to expand on what they want to do in terms of programming, a university partnership allows them to do that, whether it's having a faculty member be a guest speaker at an event, or if it's having students create more of a hands-on experience and expanding on their curriculum for school. Those museums allow us to be able to provide a resource to them, but also be able to provide resources for our students as well. And it's a really wonderful way to expand the audience. So, museums come in with their own built-in audience. And, especially working in the arts, you have in smaller cities, you might see a lot of crossover with donors, giving to multiple organizations or alumni who are involved in multiple organizations across the city. It's allowing us to really create programming and working together and not working against each other to help create more program that's engaging to the community at large.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And on the other hand, Pat and Susan, you've got experience with sports leagues and teams. So, Pat, do you want to start us off? How you talked a little bit about those, but how did that relationship get started?
Well, it came from my love of sports. A lot of my chapters, Boston, Hartford, Philadelphia, DC, what we usually do during the summer is go to a ball game. And obviously that didn't happen last year. And I thought, well, what would I like to do? And I'm a huge Yankee fan, so I went on the Google Net and reached out to the Yankees, and they actually, just to let you all know, they do offer these for individuals. So I reached out to them and asked if they would do that for a group. And I got a response back about a week later, and he said, no one has ever asked me that. Let me research it. And he came back and he said, we can do it as a group. And I think that really, you can do it as an individual and it would be perfectly fine. But doing it as, Fairfield U, doing it with your fellow stags, seeing people on the screen, he was very interactive, asking questions, doing polls, seeing those. I think that just, not exactly like going to a game, but it was really a very group-oriented event. And it was so popular, we did it twice.
And if you don't ask, you don't get, right?
That is absolutely true. Absolutely. And I will say to you, I got a question in the chat about it, and I passed it along to my own alma mater, and they did one as well. So all good.
That's a great idea. Susan, how about for you? I think folks in the audience are probably wondering, how did you get Steph Curry interested? Like what happened there? So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Years of conversations asking Steph Curry. And we're connected to the Warriors. My AVP does some announcing for them. So she knows the right people to ask. But Steph Curry's been having conversations, if you watch him, with Fauci, with Gates, with Obama. So he's been having really high level intellectual conversations with very interesting people in the last year. So we also had a person at USF that he was interested in having a conversation with. So it was, again, a perfect storm of getting Steph Curry at the right time. But through that, we actually convinced him to stream because when we had an event with Steve Kerr of the Warriors and Rick Welts, who's the COO of the Warriors. And we asked the Warriors if they wanted to stream the conversation. And that was our first time co-branding, co-streaming with anybody. And we had the right players, pun intended. So they streamed it, and we were able to show that example to Steph Curry's team, who then trusted us. And through that, we've built up trust, essentially. Going back to the MLB talk, we have one of our alums, we have a sport management program. So I'm also very interested personally, but also my alumni base is in professional sports. And so we approached her to speak, and then we wanted to have a women's conversation. And one of our other alums works for the Yankees, Jean Afterman. So we partnered with those two speakers. And then also, I mean, going back to the last question, partnering internally and how do you not compete with other parts of your own institution? I then partnered with the School of Law and the Sport Management program. And we did a talk with those two women. And through that, we're like, well, let's see if MLB wants to partner with us. So the Giants agreed to stream the talk, since we are essentially highlighting some of their own players and doing all the back end work. But I was able to show, well, the Warriors did it with us, and they'd never streamed a talk that wasn't internal to them. But we built up trust through past experiences. And then, the Yankees found out that the Giants were streaming, and their followers are tenfold from the Giants. And then MLB has their own platform, and we had to get permission through them. And suddenly MLB wanted to stream it as well. And they actually asked us, which was like a first time. Normally it's me begging other people to stream. And suddenly they're like, do you mind if we stream it? I'm like, really? Yes, please. So it's sometimes all of those organizations are aligned when you're having the right conversation. Other people want to bring that to light. So part of it's luck, and part of it's just being very shameless asking.
I think what it comes down to is everybody's looking for good content, right? Even the ones at the MLB or the Warriors or the Giants, they're still looking for to compel their audience as well. So that's great. Matt, you've got an interesting story in that Boston-based organization. You did a partnership with the San Diego Zoo, and it's like all of a sudden, how did that come about? Now that we're in this digital world and we're not limited by geography, how do you go about thinking through non-local partnerships? What does that look like?
I think it was really kind of it came from, working with our volunteers, saying, like, when we were talking to them, saying, what can we really do to kind of really build out different programming and things like that? And what are unique things that are just in the US and around the globe that people love to go to? And what I think everyone knows, the San Diego Zoo is the gold standard for zoos in the United States. So just kind of going online, working with our volunteers in the San Diego area, they were already doing virtual programming. So we were able to kind of connect with them and figure out different things. And I think this is kind of talks to a little bit of the point of where people were talking about charged events and non-charged events. So when it's a human capital event where really the only thing that we're using is people, and it's not really a cost to university, we haven't really been charging for those events. But because this was a little bit more of, they already have things kind of in place, and there was a little bit of a charge to the university to kind of make sure the animals were there and all the technology that they were using, we were charged, but then we passed on a little bit of a charge to the to our guests. And to Susan's point earlier too, we were able to kind of get donations in from that too. But those different kind of programs have been really successful. So bringing and highlighting different areas, that people would love to go to in non-COVID times in person, and being able to show that has been really great. I think along with that, kind of looking at other different ways that we've been able to partner is working with our alums, throughout the globe. So we've actually had one of our staff members has put together a really great program of basically virtual tours. So we reached out to our alumni. We had a virtual tour of Hawaii. We've had a virtual tour of London. We actually did a Harry Potter tour of Scotland, which was a really great event where basically there was a person who is really knowledgeable about Harry Potter and where J.K. Rowling wrote all of Harry Potter and where each different, like where Sirius Black's name came from and things like that. And things like that people are just interested in because we are in that digital space. So we can expand kind of where we are. I think looking at where different things that people would always love to go to. So like the Louvre or the Vatican, even the new museum in New York, the Metropolitan Museum, different things like that are all really great. I think one of the programs we're working with New York right now is actually behind the scenes at Broadway. Basically, like as the theaters are kind of coming back, people kind of want to see what's going on. And, if you don't have to just live in New York to love theater, so it's a great way for us to kind of expand and bring people into those different kind of events. Where we were once limited to geographically, we now can expand and kind of bring everyone in.
Just opens up so many interesting opportunities for partnerships and expansion and value add for your alumni. Yeah, that's really exciting. Shifting gears, to the other side, Azela, you've been very focused on local partnerships, regional partnerships in Florida. Can you talk a little bit about how you've initiated some of those, what those benefits have been?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So as I mentioned before, with UCF, we have some more formal or direct partnerships. And a lot of these partnerships have stemmed directly from the administration of the college, to the dean of the college, who is supporting these efforts to really create a partnership that allows a give and take with both organizations and the university. And a great example would be the Orlando Shakespeare Theater. So the artistic director of the Shakespeare Theater actually also serves as a faculty member for Theater UCF. And this partnership provides our students an opportunity to not only participate in acting and education internship programs to essentially fulfill like their MFA program or BFA programs, but also allows us to be able to engage with them and participate as actors and designers and directors for various projects. And this partnership has allowed us to expand and be able to host various events that allow us to bring our alumni and donors to these organizations. And because of that direct partnership, we were able to bring, as an example, an alumni tour to highlight the alumni that are working with that organization. So the marketing director is also a UCF alum. We have a lot of our alumni and students who are participating in productions at Orlando Shakespeare Theater. And it's allowed us to be able to create unique programming and special tours and behind the scenes tours that maybe some of our constituency base may not have the opportunity to see. And this sort of expands across a lot of our other local partnerships across Orlando, where we're able to create unique experiences for those constituency bases.
Love it. I've got one last question for our constituents. So I think, the pandemic has really been this forcing function of let's figure out ways to think outside the box. Let's explore new partnerships. We need to meet this demand to churn out new virtual content at a breakneck speed and with basically no additional resources. So I think my question is, are these partnerships going to outlive the pandemic? And, maybe along those same lines, how are we going to strike that balance, when things do kind of start to go back to normal of virtual versus in person? So Susan, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not free, I don't think. But I'm absolutely planning in my budget for the next year and into the future for doing hybrid events. So I think networking in person, there's nothing that beats that connection, that smile. But with that being said, we've engaged alum all over the world, in Kentucky and Kansas and Hawaii, people that can't come. So every conversation we have that the speakers allow us, I will be streaming virtually. We just started streaming on LinkedIn Live, which has been actually a huge success. Also, Twitter is huge. We had been doing Facebook Live even before the pandemic, but these other platforms I'm actually getting even more responses on, and that was something new that we're doing. So we have somebody that we use for streaming, and I'm building that person into our budget now going forward.
Very cool. Azela, how about you? You think these partnerships are going to outlive the pandemic?
I definitely do. I think, as Susan mentioned, we've noticed some even more success on having some of our normal in-person events go to a virtual setting. And so sort of experimenting with that and seeing how we can change it up and sort of modify it to be able to allow alumni and donors from across the US to be able to tune in to some of these events allows us to really engage a larger audience. And, these partnerships are really important for our college, especially because they allow us to create experiences for our alumni, but also for our students and also the community. But be able to do these programs with limited resources and be creative with what we're doing with it.
That's fantastic. Ellen, what do you think? You think these partnerships are here to stay?
I think so. And I hope that just because the pandemic ends doesn't mean we think we have to stop being creative. And the other thing that I would say to budgeting concerns, because I think that will always be a concern, is think about a good old-fashioned barter. As Azela mentioned, museums are always understaffed. Unfortunately, they are even more understaffed now because of the pandemic. museum staffs have been slashed. And so think about, if they do something for us, then what can we do for them? Can we, as someone mentioned, send a speaker to an after-hours adult program, or send lab assistants to do a hands-on activity at an after-hours event? I think there's a lot of ways that we can continue to support each other without spending a lot of money to do so.
Fantastic. Matt, what do you think? For this whole new world of partnerships and virtual and pandemic, you think this is here to stay? Is this going to outlive the next year?
Yes, I think a hybrid model for us, at least, is going to be moving forward. I think it's really kind of, getting back in person. There will always be that when we can get back in person. I think, like we were saying, being around different people and different things like that is something that we'll definitely be able to do. But being able to get the gets that we can get in the virtual space that we can't get in the in-person space, with faculty and deans and things like that, to be able to kind of get their word out and different things, is going to be something that we're really going to have to be able to rely on. Just budget dollar wise, it's a lot easier to do a virtual event than fly someone to Chicago, spend 2 days in the hotel room to just come back. I think for us, it's going to be really kind of looking at how do we get the word out to different alumni and different things like that. And also just looking at what we've been hearing from our alumni. A lot of people are saying, I'm not going back into an office. So if they're not going to be in a major metropolitan where we would be normally doing our event, they're not going to come in after they're done with work. So they're happy to kind of stay with the virtual space and things like that. So we're really going to be able to kind of look at that, I think. And also it expands the market, being able to kind of get different people. We had, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had virtual happy hours, which I know that probably all of us have gone way past at this point. But one of the things that we've been able to kind of do in that is, there was someone that was sandwiched right between Philly and New York. And they were like, I'm too far away from Philly and I'm too far away from New York to really get to an event. But they were able to kind of reconnect with the university that way. So being able to find those people that, don't come out to our natural events because of work or life or where they live, can now reconnect back to the university.
Fantastic. Pat, what do you think? Are these partnerships going to outlast the pandemic?
I hope so. Right before this webinar, I was on my monthly call with my Fairfield Westchester County chapter team. And we were talking about this because, quite honestly, Zoom fatigue is a thing. I think this has to continue, but we're thinking of surveying people to see how much of this they want to see. So I think we need to ask our constituents what they want to see. As I said earlier, this is a great way for lifelong learning. We are institutions of higher education, so we want everybody to be lifelong learners. So what better way to do it than in this platform for a lot of these tours and museums and all of that. So there is definitely a place for it.
For sure. So I don't think we're going to have time to get to all of our questions, but I want to just really quick, Susan, it looks like there's one from Ashley asking about, does anyone incorporate face filters, stickers that are branded for your events? Alumni can use in their stories. That way alumni can help market their events if they choose to use those stickers.
I love that idea. I'm not using them. If there's anyone else who could answer that question, I have the same question as Ashley. It sounds like a great way to get alumni more involved and co-branding with us.
For sure. Anybody else doing that? It sounds like no. And then another question. Anybody running? And so I recently saw another university advertising a watch the game night on Zoom for their alumni. Anybody else running an event like that? How are you getting around broadcast rights, if so?
We tried it. And somebody had it on their screen at their house, and everybody kind of zoomed into that. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
We tried it as well. We just couldn't get in the game on time, but we were trying to get rights through ESPN. I know Gonzaga has done it successfully. If anyone wants to, I'll put my email and I'll find the woman. I have her contacts because I have seen it done as well. And we weren't able to do it in time when we attempted the same thing.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to speed round this last question. 10 words or less. What is the biggest takeaway you want each person watching to be able to consider and bring back to their organization? I'm not going to hold you firm on the 10 words. Susan, can you start us off?
Oh God. Don't give up. Be shameless. Shoot for the gold. Truly. It doesn't hurt to ask. I get yeses, probably 50% of the time. So, and have the right person asking as well. And don't ask just once. I mean, I used to work in sales. So ask 20 times in different ways. Again, it took us to get years to get curry. So don't give up. Put it in your calendar as a salesperson. Every month, a new creative way to reach out to these people. And one day they will be like, yes, just so this person goes away. And that's how you do it.
Love it. Azela, what do you think?
I would say be very flexible and open to new ideas.
Succinct. Ellen.
Be creative and think about how you can help the organization or person you're reaching out to.
Fantastic. Matt.
I just say, think about the alum that you weren't able to get engaged with before because of a location thing, and find a way that you are going to be able to kind of bring them back to the institution. No idea is too crazy during the world of virtual space.
Love it. And Pat, take us home.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Matt. Don't forget about our constituents who tuned in virtually.
Easy, smart, sage, everybody. Fantastic. Pat, Matt, Ellen, Azela, Susan, thank you so much for your insights. We'd love to hear what you think about this webinar, what topics you want to hear. You're welcome to reach out to me. I'm just dan@cuseum.com, or you can reach out to hello@cuseum.com. Panelists, thank you so much for being here. To everybody who tuned in today, thanks so much for being here as well. Feel free to reach out with future topics. We'll have another talk like this in the coming months, and everybody stay safe. Thanks all. Bye all.